Hi. Is pronunciation in a foreign language really that important? Let's find out. This is Susan Broder from Speak Languages and Travel the World, here to help you improve your English with minimum effort and maximum benefit. Yes, well, many people underestimate the importance of pronunciation, but I have another example which happened to me the other day. I was listening to the radio and they were speaking about a program and they were saying, oh, this really nice film, The Avengers, and I'm thinking, what are the Avengers? And then I realized they were talking about the Avengers. But I'm a teacher and I'm supposed to be used to hearing things being mispronounced. Even so, I didn't understand. It took me 3 to 4 times listening to this word to think, wait a minute, Avengers, oh, it's Avengers. So unfortunately for those who think it's not really important, pronunciation is important. I've always said that the best students at pronouncing a foreign language are the young ones, those who don't know how to read yet, because they have no influence from the written words. They just listen really carefully and try and imitate the sound they hear. And this is something really, really important. So one should really learn not to be influenced by the written word. An example. So many years ago I started teaching 2-year-olds English in small groups, and we carried on until they were about 5, I think. And when they were about 5, I started giving them homework. And I remember one day I said, well, colour these balloons in. And they started colouring in where it said red, they had to colour red. Where it said blue, they had to colour blue. And suddenly one boy asks me, now, what does grain mean? And he knew all the colours really, really well. We'd been doing them for years, playing games with them. And he says, what does grain mean? And I said, grain? Why don't you think, what does it sound like? But it took him a really long time to understand that grain was green. It was written G-R-E-E-N, but he'd never seen the written word, and with 2 E's it just confused him. And so he said grain, and grain made absolutely no sense to him. So that's where he started being influenced by the written word. That's why I always say it's much better for people to not learn to read first, but learn to listen and pronounce before they actually see the written word. In any case, most of us do learn a language with the writing first, and I'd like to concentrate on 2 sounds today. One of them is all words starting with DR, and another is the word starting with TR. Now, they have sounds which are different depending on what language origin you are. And so you shouldn't really pronounce it as many people do. Many people pronounce the DR as dr, and you shouldn't roll your R. You should actually make it more a J sound, dr. So that's something you should concentrate on, dr, dr. Some words, so for example, dress. I like to wear dresses in the summer, but I don't usually wear a dress in winter. I prefer wearing dresses in the summer. Dream. We dream at night. Dream. Drone. Nowadays there are often problems for airplanes because people fly drones much too close to the airports. That's quite dangerous. Another word, drive. You drive a car, and yesterday I drove to the supermarket. Drum. You can play the drums. Lots of people like learning to play musical instruments, and some of them like to play the drums. Drop. Drop can be a verb, so you make something fall down. I dropped my glass and it broke into 1,000,000 pieces. Or a drop can be like a teardrop, a drop of water which comes down. Then we have drip. So when there are lots of drops coming out of the tap, when there are lots of drops coming out of the tap drips. And especially if you're trying to sleep, a dripping tap is something really annoying. It goes drip, drip. Then we have a dragon, which many children like to read stories about. Saint George and the Dragon, for example. Drink. So to drink is a verb, and if I want to drink, it doesn't necessarily have to be something alcoholic. Many people consider a drink as automatically an aperitif or something alcoholic, but a drink can also be a glass of water, a glass of juice, anything that's liquid that you can drink. Dry. Dry is the opposite of wet, so when you wash your clothes, then you hang them out to dry, or you can put them in a dryer as well. Draw, you can draw a picture. Then we have drugs and the drugstore, and drug addicts, people who can't resist taking drugs. Drain. So if you have a liquid, you can pour it down the drain, or you can have problems if you're driving along a road where all the drains are full, and so the water doesn't drain away down the drain. And finally, for you, I have draft. Draft is usually a bad copy. You're starting to write a letter, an essay, you write a draft, and then you look at it carefully and you decide whether you want to make improvements before you have your final copy. So, as you can hear, all these words start with a DR, but in reality they have a dr sound. It's dr is the sound. Instead, there are words which start with TR, which are pronounced tr. For example, tree. Here there are lots and lots of trees. I don't know if you can see them. These are trees. And many people confuse three with tree. Tree is ch, almost a chur. And three has your tongue between your teeth, so you can have 3 trees. 3 trees. Okay, so you mustn't confuse 3 and tree. Then I like to travel, so I travel a lot. It's one of my favorite hobbies. You can also go on a trip, which is usually something shorter. You can trek, go trekking. You can go trekking in the mountains for a few days and enjoy nature. You can take different forms of public transport, such as a train, a tram, a truck. These are all words with tr. Try. You can try something. For example, if someone asks you, have you ever tasted Japanese food? You can say, no, I'll try it, I'll taste it. Or you can buy some clothes and you're not sure if the size fits you. So you'll say, can I try it on? And that's when you try something. Let me see, track. Track can be a verb. So I sent a package off once recently and it didn't arrive. So I had to track it down, to track which route it had taken and why it hadn't arrived. But track is also a kind of road. I suppose we could say, well, this isn't exactly a track I'm walking along, but when there's gravel, or it's, yes, as I was on holiday last week and it's rather dusty, we can call it a dirt track. So a track is a route which is not usually used for going along regularly. There are sports tracks as well where you can do sports. Let me see. Oh yes, then at Halloween we have trick or treat. Trick or treat. Trick is when we play a joke on someone, or a magician can make a trick as well, a magic trick. And treat is something good. So if I want to offer you a treat, I'll offer you some ice cream, some chocolates, or I'll even offer you, do you want to come to the cinema with me? It might be a treat if you don't go very regularly. Trim. I haven't trimmed my hair for a long time. It's quite long, but when it gets too long, I cut it a little, just a little, so I trim it. Trial. Trial is when you test something and you see if it works or not. You do a trial. Tremendous. Tremendous has a false friend usually in other languages, because tremendous is something really, really good in English. It's fantastic, it's incredible. So I saw a tremendous film the other day, or I went on a tremendous trip. It means it was fantastic, really, really good. I know in other languages it has a negative connotation, so you mustn't confuse it. Tremendous. Trade. Trade is used a lot in business. I used to work at trade fairs, and trade is commerce, so trade. Trash. The Americans use the word trash for what we British call rubbish. Trash. And finally, if you want to play another musical instrument, you can play a trumpet. A trumpet. So you should really concentrate on these sounds and not worry about the way they're written, because that's, especially in listening, it's going to block you from understanding. Many people listen and don't understand, and that's one of the reasons, because they expect to hear the words the way they're written, and unfortunately they're not. Just an example is do you. We rarely say do you, we say do. For example, do you want to come to the cinema with me will be do you wanna come? Do you wanna? Or do you have to stay at home and do your homework? Do you have to? Do you have to? Or do you like? Do you like? Or do you usually, I don't know, stay at home on a Sunday evening? Do you usually? So these are all words that are pronounced completely differently from the way they're written. And that's something important for you to bear in mind when you're learning a language. Don't concentrate on the way it's written, concentrate on the way it's pronounced. And if you learn the pronunciation, you'll be able to pick out the words when people say them on a film. When you stop people on the street and ask a question, you'll be able to understand the conversation better if you concentrate on pronunciation. So that's something I recommend you practice. Okay, and I hope this was useful, and see you again in my next video. Bye. Goodbye.